What's going on, everybody? Mortem here, this time bringing you my first impressions for Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines 2, a game with a troubled development history and, of course, the long-awaited sequel to the original game. And I'm finally able to take a look at it with the game itself having released yesterday from the time of this video. Now, I obviously did not get a review key for this, I did pay for it, so it's going to take me a little while to get through it and go through my normal 100% review. In particular, it looks like this is probably going to take like 6 playthroughs, so that might actually take a minute. But I also don't really want to bury the lead here, and just to kind of start off with, I would say probably the most important point. While this feels like a perfectly fine AA vampire game in general, as a sequel to Bloodlines specifically, I'm not feeling it. A lot of the actual RPG elements are just not there, and while the game does seem to have an interesting enough story with interesting characters, you don't really get to make a character of your own, with there only being a few appearance options for Fire, of course, but we knew that ahead of time. But even things like your clan choice is basically just you picking the flavor of combat you want, because it doesn't really seem to matter anywhere else. It's not going to give you non-combat options outside of the occasional bit of extra dialogue when you're talking to somebody from your clan, as an example. And while the game does appear to have multiple endings, from what I can tell about 5 hours in, that seems to be mostly down to just how you talk to people and a few choices you'll make along the way that don't really have anything to do with how you've built your character or how you've approached the situation or anything like that. And so, as a sequel to Bloodlines 1, I'm just not feeling it. However, it is clear that the game does have a few merits independent of that, and that's obviously things I'll go over in the full review and a little bit here. But honestly, I feel like if this wasn't using the Bloodlines name, it would be a perfectly good vampire title on its own. That said, let's actually jump in and dive into this thing. So, when you start the game, you initially choose between a male or female version of Fire, our protagonist, otherwise known as the Nomad, with Fire just being a name they've taken from a poster after waking up from torpor. A long sleep, basically, for vampires. You've been alive for a long time. You're an elder. That is to say, an incredibly dangerous vampire who's been around for a while. The catch being that you've woken up with some sort of brand that is suppressing some of your powers, and while you are still much, much stronger than your average vampire, you're hardly up to full speed, and the tutorial of you kind of getting out of this abandoned building you find yourself in also introduces the character Fabian. Fabian is a voice in your head that, if you know anything at all about the setting, Vampire the Masquerade, you know exactly how it got there. And while I'm not going to spoil it in this video just yet, even though I'm really not that far myself, if you're familiar with the setting, there's really kind of only one major way that tends to happen to vampires, and while there may be a twist later in the story, its presentation in the beginning is basically exactly what you think it is. Though I'll talk more about the story later, though probably not full spoilers in the review, mind you. Upon escaping the immediate danger, you, with Fabian, head back to his old haven where you get to grips with yourself. In the meantime, you'll actually choose the clan you hail from, one of the 6 available in this game, but far from all of them. And I was a little disappointed to find out that outside of a little bit of dialogue here and there, this is like primarily just a combat decision. It doesn't seem to make basically any difference in most social situations. You can't really do much with it in terms of like interacting and feeding and stuff outside of just like some super basic passive abilities here and there. And I suppose it's possible it will come up later, but I'm just not seeing it. And the catch is, in combat, it's kind of only your starting point at that. So we knew some of this ahead of time, mind you, so this isn't exactly news. But basically, you'll initially probably max out your own clan abilities, and then once you get a little ways into the story, like 3 or 4 hours, you open up the ability to talk to leaders from the other clans, and they will help you learn abilities from their clans that you supposedly already knew and just have to reawaken. In order to do this, you need blood essences, basically, from different types of civilians you can feed on. This being a sort of interpretation of the resonance mechanic in the TTRPG, but through this system, while the clan abilities from other clans are more expensive, you can mix and match what your character's doing anyway. So, like, the main flair of these clans also kind of gets lessened because you can just get the abilities from the other ones anyway. Really, the only thing that is truly unique to the clan you are playing is the clan passive, which just isn't really all that impactful in and of itself. Now, to a degree, your clan does play a little bit of a role in terms of your appearance, that is to say your clothing specifically, because as you unlock abilities from the other trees and your clan, You'll also unlock like outfits basically to match that. And supposedly these outfits have an effect on the people you're having conversations with, but I haven't seen that in game reflected at all yet. Though that seems to pretty much be all there is to progression. And then gameplay wise, running around the city of Seattle, I want to say a few things straight away. The atmosphere is great. I think a lot of the characters are really well done and interesting. Unfortunately, there's just not really anything else to like deep dive into and explore in terms of the area that they've made available. There's a couple of things you can find running around, usually like some lore tidbits here and there, things you can pick up. There's some collectible type things that you can hand in as side quests, some of which grant you experience to then throw back into granting yourself more of those abilities. But I've got to say, at least a few hours in, even getting to the point where things open up and you can actually get some side quests, and like side quests so far seem to really just be go here, kill these people, come back, try not to break the masquerade while you're at it, and the only kind of interesting stuff so far in terms of like more varied content has been the main story. And given the number of great side quests in the original, I at least hope as I get deeper in here that there's some more memorable stuff in terms of side content. However, I did mention the masquerade there. This isn't like anything too crazy, but to be fair, the first game wasn't that crazy about the masquerade either. Basically, when you're out running around on the streets, you need to not necessarily use your vampiric powers or feed directly in front of people, because this tips off the powers that be that you are a vampire, and that is, of course, a masquerade violation. Small infractions don't really matter. Like if somebody catches you feeding, you can just go hide for a little bit and it goes away. More serious infractions, like, killing things, will quickly fill up a meter that if it maxes out, you're just instant dead. And there are certainly places that you are just not really allowed to use your powers, typically places that would have been considered Elysium in Bloodlines 1, which did the same thing, so not exactly a big deal. So to reinforce my earlier points, basically this seems to be a very action-focused AA vampire title with an interesting story. I think if it didn't have the Bloodlines name attached to it, it would probably be okay. And I think a big reason for that is that I'm just not really seeing the RPG side of this. Like, you don't have an inventory, you can't pick up items. The only weapons that aren't your hands that you can use are essentially one use, and you do that via telekinesis, which I think makes a certain sense for guns. I think a super old vampire probably wouldn't feel comfortable using one especially effectively. But I don't think it exactly requires training to pick up a melee weapon, Now, on the bright side, the technical side, to be specific, it does look like everything is working pretty well here, at least for me so far. Haven't had any crashes like that. It's still early. I mean, we'll see what happens, but the only thing of note really is that sometimes when you exit a door out into the city, which is seemingly a hidden loading screen, it'll freeze up for a second sometimes, but that's about it. And so for a first impressions video, I think we're going to leave it there, but that's kind of where I'm at with it. It's got some interesting things going on, some things that I want to get through and see for myself. I want to see if the clans wind up actually having anything to do with options or story changes, that kind of thing. I want to see all the endings and see what affects those, how well the story plays out, that kind of thing. And we'll obviously get into all that in the review proper, but here at the beginning, with about 5 or so hours in, seems like a pretty good vampire game in general, but not really a sequel to Bloodlines 1, which is where I'm going to drop this particular video. So, hope you enjoyed it. If you did, by all means, like, comment, subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. I will have the review out for this when it is done. Not exactly in a hurry, as we're past the embargo date, but hopefully won't have to make people wait too long either. From what I understand, the game is not terribly long, but I do have to play through it like 6 times, so we'll see how long it takes, I guess. Either way, though, that review is coming. Hope you enjoyed the video. Let me know how you feel about it down below. But regardless of any of that, truly, just thank you so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. May you wander in wisdom and have an amazing day.